Hello YouTube, it is the end of the month and we're here to give y'all some thoughts on the politics, honey. So let's go ahead and get into it. This is the night one of the debates. I'm not going to go blow by blow like I did with the other one. I really wish now, looking back at it, that I should have did part two with Marianne Williamson because this was so much more of a letdown, and not because of her, because she actually picked up steam tonight. But if I would have darn gone did my initial thoughts on her when she was on night two, I really am a fan of Marianne Williamson. She's in my top three. And not just because of the reparations talk, but just because of her overallness. I mean, she's a little cuckoo crazy, a little out there, honey, cosmic forces and stuff. But I do believe somebody who owns they crazy and know they crazy is more efficient than somebody who doesn't know they crazy like Donald Trump. And it takes an equal and opposite darn going balance of power to throw out something. So it's like you have all these rational candidates who are very intellectual and all these fancy backgrounds and stuff going up against this ass. And Marianne Williamson hit the nail on the head by basically stating he didn't get in office on his darn gone policies alone. This is a person who didn't know that Puerto Rico is part of the continental United States as a territory. He doesn't even know all of 50 United States. He thought that Hawaii was his own darn gone land independent of darn gone the U.S. So he obviously didn't get into office solely off his intellect. He got off by invoking fear and inciting racism, and it would take an equal kooky crazy caliber from the love perspective to balance that out and drive him out. So I understand what she's saying in her own special way, honey. But then again, probably it's because of my background of dealing with, people who are both smart and not so smart on a daily basis, near the Merc, honey. So with that being said, I immediately am gravitating towards Marianne Williamson. Overall, first hour of the debates is like, damn, it was not needed. It was like this could have been a 2 hour debate too. I was so excited that it was 3 hours, and I was like, it's definitely good that it was 3 hours because the first hour was a complete snooze fest. It didn't pick up until the second hour. That's why I'm pretty much just summarizing it because the main points were Elisabeth Warren being her normal self, Bernie Sanders coming out and he's waving his hands up against one of the nobodies. And I hate to say the nobodies, but it's like the fact that we have to look at our phones at this point in the game just to darn on put a name to a face. It's like if we can't even darn go and recognize you at this point, I really can't take you seriously. So it's like most of the candidates, I still can't even darn go name them off the top of my head. Everybody knows Marianne Williamson by now. She was the most searched candidate of the night, and rightfully so. Everybody already knew Bernie Sanders. Everybody knew Elisabeth Warren. But as far as everybody else, it's like the one guy, the only reason why we can recognize him the most is because he reminds us of the guy, the cartoon character off of King of the Hill. Like he reminds us, he reminds us of King of the Damn Hill. But everybody else, we don't even have a cartoon reference to darn gonna compare y'all asses to. And then night two, I mean, at least the women are starting to get noticed a little bit more. Like I'm starting to be familiar with Jill the brand name, Tulsi Gabbard. Like the women are doing pretty well. But it's like these men about to get up out of here come darn going January's debates. When's the next one? September? Yeah, September, all of them about to get gone. I predict that it's about to get reduced to about like 12 come darn on debate time. And I'm going to go ahead and make the prediction that it's going to be the surviving members are going to be Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elisabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and once again the correct pronunciation of Kamala's name is Kamala, not Kamala, not Kamala, not Kamala. It's Kamala. And trust me, I took the time to learn it myself because I hate when somebody fuck up my name. So the correct pronunciation, just in case y'all are wondering, is Kamala Harris. Cory Booker will be number 5. Andrew Yang, Marianne Williamson. Why I feel like I'm missing somebody in there. Pete Judybug, Pete Buttigieg, or whatever his name is. I think he will come in, and this is in no particular order. These are the ones I'm thinking is going to make it to the final set. The one that tries so hard to act like she's Hillary, but she's nowhere near like Hillary Gillibrand. I say she'll go ahead and be in there before she get knocked out. The mayor, and then there go Pete, not Pete, but Mr. King of the Hill, and one more moderate. One of them no names in there. That it would be 12 of them. It's currently 20. I predict it's going to get down to 12 by the time we get to the fall. It's going to be two more. And if I didn't name their names, those are the ones that's going to be on that list of the chopping block. It's going to be 12 by the time we get to this. But yeah, the highlights of the night was definitely for me the reparations talk. Nonetheless, I mean the fact that Miss Don Honey finally brought it up, and Marianne Williamson was able to clarify on it. Now my only thing is this though. She recognizes that the atrocity is into the tune of trillions of dollars, and she's saying that we should at least be putting the starting point at 100 billion. Now, Marianne, now I understand you trying to darn gonna be PC, and you not trying to go full force into this, but we need to add an extra zero. I don't know what it is with you and that zero, but we done had conversations about this now. If we understand that the atrocities at the minimum is universally at least $1 trillion, we need to be starting the conversation at $1 trillion, not billion. So that's my only gripe with Marianne Williamson when it comes to the topic of reparations. But as far as her describing the atrocities and histories, she does it pretty well. But I would like for her to tie that into more so modern day atrocities. I would love for her to bring up the fact that the slavery went from privatized to government run slavery in the form of the prison system. I would love for her to, matter of fact, somebody on her team need to forward this to her so she can bring this up at the next debates. Whenever they ask her about why reparations should be given to black people, because this has been the constant question from a lot of white people who are oblivious to this question. Well, I wasn't alive, or I can trace my lineage, and I wasn't a descendant of slave owners, so why should my taxpayer dollars go towards reparations for black people? Okay, here's why. Just like you wasn't responsible for slavery, you wasn't responsible for the Holocaust. Matter of fact, no United States citizen was responsible for the Holocaust. And this would be a good one that she can clap back at Bernie Sanders on. I want her ass to ask Bernie Sanders that how come it's okay for America to be archilistic enough and darn going atone, phrasing in her own special way, atone and pay for the sins that was done by the Germans onto Jewish people, and pay out the surviving members of the Holocaust money. And then not only were they paid out by U.S. government, but then over 60-some years later, while in office as the Senate as late as 2015, with President Barack Obama in office, signed off on another round of reparations that was exclusively paid to Jewish people, which you, Bernie Sanders, did not have a problem with. But now, less than a year later, in 2016, you was quoted by saying reparations to black people were divisive. Now, how is that so? How come when it comes to your people, you was able to get reparations to them? And this was during a time frame where most of the citizens around today were not alive, except for, the people in your age bracket. But, as late as 2015, you allowed all the taxpayers to pay out for another set of reparations for something that America wasn't even responsible for. But you don't want America to actually own up to the atrocities that they are responsible for, as far as the enslavement of black people, and then civil rights. And then I don't want her to end at civil rights. Here's another flaw that she messes up at. She needs to go into the crack cocaine epidemic. She needs to also point out the disparages between how crack cocaine gets people arrested, so much so that even with the body cams that are on people, I need her to pull up the footage of officers stopping people for running the traffic light, but then we see these officers planting crack cocaine on a black man. And due to the fact that crack is still penalized as a felony, these people are going to jail, even for people who may not even partake in drugs but are being stereotyped as drug addicts. So you have these officers being able to even frame people with crack cocaine. But when it comes to heroin, you got sanctuary cities. So you have a whole double standard amongst black people versus white people for drugs that are perceived to be at the same level, because heroin is actually even more dangerous than crack cocaine. Yet we give heroin addicts free needles. We give them sanctuary cities. We give them a way to dispose of their needles. They can bring it to the pharmacy and put it in the thing. We have blankets and stuff for them. We have all these pillows, and we making sure that they're not cross-contaminating with the needles. But when it comes to crack addicts, you're not giving them that same level, and nor do I want you to, because I feel that while we on the topic of Medicare for All, which was another hot topic of the evening, why isn't drug rehabilitation on the discussion? Like, we're talking about the same old dental, which I'm not opposed to it, because, honey, I definitely need to get this side tooth worked on. But in addition to the stereotypical benefits, dental and vision and all of this, making sure if you have a pre-existing condition, you're able to see your doctor and all that. But what is never mentioned is about drug addicts. Why isn't it mentioned about them being able to get coverage? And why isn't it mentioned about creating more inpatient facilities? Because when it comes to searching for inpatient facilities for people to wean themselves off, there is a severe lack of it. Like in North Carolina, we tried to get my cousin admitted into an inpatient because she suffers from a heavy crack cocaine addiction. There aren't any facilities for miles. The nearest one is Asheville, which is over 4 hours away. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And you telling me the nearest darn decent facility is 4 hours away, and Fayetteville is a major darn city? Like, there's not even one in our capital that in Raleigh too tough. So just due to the fact that there are a lack of facilities, and the fact that it has to be out of pocket, and that this can't be properly fully covered under insurance, we need to be dealing with that issue as well, for not only, heroin addicts, which is mostly white people, but we need to make it also for crack addicts. And while we're talking about, reducing the sentences for marijuana, we also need to be talking about, reducing the sentences for crack addicts and putting them into treatment facilities instead, since you're giving complete clemency to heroin addicts. You're not even arresting them. You got special medication for them. If somebody falls out in the street of what appears to be a heroin overdose, officers are now being equipped with this medication to shoot them up and then send them off on their merry way. But if you see a crackhead just, doing this, you about to slam them all up against the car and throw them in the car. And, Donald Trump gives you permission to not be careful with putting their head down so they can get their head banged up all up against the top of the car. And the main difference between a crack addict and a heroin addict is one is done by a majority white group and one is done by a majority black group. So Marianne Williamson, your people need to come across this video, and you need to bring up all of this disparaging, because all this goes into reparations talk when it comes to not only a financial payout, but criminal justice reform and economic restitution. Because when it comes to reparations for Native Americans, which once again is something that we as American citizens all pay for people who are tribal, such as some of my cousins. And the thing is, when it comes to reparations in general, even the people who receive reparations even pay into it to a certain extent. Fellow Native Americans pay for it into it, just like Jewish people paid into it. Your taxpayer dollars is what funds the reparations payout. So when it comes to Native Americans on the sovereign lands, the ones that get their houses and stuff, they special grants and stuff afforded to them to a certain extent, because once again, I done established that Native American grants are not the the stereotype that certain people think it is. The lottery system is not what people think it is. If y'all want me to do another video on that, I can break that down. But that comes out of taxpayer dollars on an annual basis, and that was during the same time frame as slavery. So America doesn't have any problem selectively paying Native Americans, and I say that loosely because they are paying a majority of the wrong ones. I do believe why y'all was so busy to quit to try to kick out black people in there who actually have Native American DNA in their system. You should have been darn on vetting the darn on white porcelain ones. Just because they seemingly look the part, honey, the DNA test would tell the darn on truth. Tell baby. How in the hell I see darn on black Native Americans with 30, 40, 50, 60+% Native American DNA not being claimed as Native, but then you got darn on people like Elisabeth Warren's sister trying to claim like she's 100%. Marianne Williamson, you need to stop playing nice, and you need to go there. You need to bring up the darn on articles showing darn on Elisabeth Warren's own sister claiming that she's fully tribal Native American with her white ass. You need to be able to darn on. I understand you have much love and respect for darn on. You let your admiration show to your detriment that night, because I feel you was being a little bit too laissez-faire. You need to be strict, because when it comes down to it, it's going to be you or them. Now, I'm not saying you got to permanently kick them down, but you need to be able to have the balls to darn on buck up to Elisabeth Warren and call her out on her hypocrisy. And her sister darn on trying to pretend that she's fully Native American. And the modern day $5 Indian taken from legitimate Native Americans. And just making it harder on them. And while your family trying to claim Navajo status, what have you done for the darn on Navajo Indians? Because we see what your lack of what happened to the Sioux. You in a position of power, and you, Bernie Sanders, nor President Barack Obama even had the courage to even help out the darn on Sioux Indian tribe, and you allowed a whole Dakota Access Pipeline to go through their darn on water system. They're going to contaminate all their waters, and that's not even brought up to this day since we on the topic of Flint, Michigan. See, I'm going to bring this shit all the way around in this darn going video. I'm tying all this motherfucking bullshit in with hypocrisy. And I hope Marianne Williamson people catch all this video to use as a reference to educate her on the next debate of all the stuff she needs to ask them. Because while we talking about Flint water system and all that, we could talk about the darn direct intentional darn poisoning of the water that was signed off by this current president through the darn that affected the Sioux Indian tribe. And not only did it affect their water system, but that water goes down to the public. So it doesn't just affect the Sioux tribes, but it also affects those people in North Dakota. So I do give her credit when she said, that this is not just a Flint problem, that this is going on in South Carolina. I wish she would have mentioned the sister state, North Carolina. That's another thing you need to mention, because we have Gen X in our darn water. And that is very dangerous for somebody like myself who has survived cancer, somebody who suffers from Crohn's disease. And it's also very dangerous for if you have children underneath the age of 4. It's also dangerous for people who are over the age of 70 in general. So I also want her to elaborate on the Gen X crisis in North Carolina, because North Carolina being a swing state, Marianne Williamson, and having a moderate-sized black population, and if you were to tie North Carolina in addition to South Carolina, that can help you out with the voter base as well, because you got a lot of supporters such as myself in North Carolina who would be glad to advocate for you, but you need to bring this up and include us into these discussions as well. So it was good that you brought up, Charleston, South Carolina. but also make sure to bring up the sister state that is also going through major water crises as well. Also make sure to bring up the Lumbee Indian tribes and they contaminated water system, and how you have a majority of white people trying to dictate who can be a Native American and who can't be. Like you need to connect with all the people, since you are the one that's the main advocate for reparations. You need to be able to gather with all people, black and brown, but just sticking to black people and reparations. Just the disparaging between the arrest between black people versus white people. White people are giving complete clemency to darn on take heroin without fear of being arrested, but a black person still is in fear of being put in jail if they are caught with crack cocaine. And we know crack cocaine was funded in and specifically put into black neighborhoods to dismantle the black neighborhoods, the 1980s crack cocaine epidemic. So knowing that this was a Pacific epidemic that happened in the 80s that was used to target black people, that right there alone can darn set a precedent for reparations to be paid out to modern day darn American descendants of slaves, which I don't like that term, because I prefer, my people to be considered to be in an enslaved condition as opposed to slaves, because that's not what they was destined to be. Terminology definitely matters, but y'all know Yvette, the Yvette girl came up with darn on ADOS, so that's what y'all want to call yourselves. But nonetheless, black people who can trace their roots to chattel slavery. So yeah, I would love for her to bring up that as well. Let me go ahead and take a sip of water real quick. I've been talking 20 minutes straight, y'all. But yeah, while we on the topic of reparations, I'd love for her to bring up those disparagements, because like I said, the crack cocaine epidemic alone is enough of a case to bring up reparations for modern day black people who have, roots that extend through American chattel slavery. DNA testing nowadays can easily separate a West Indian, between, birth certificates, DNA testing, that can separate, people such as the Kamala Harrises of the world and people who are not, 50+% African, but are indeed, about 30+%. It can separate them out so full black people such as myself can receive reparations, because once again there's a lot of confusion of who's black and who's not really black, because you have President Barack Obama, who looks phenotypically more blacker than me. He looks like a light-skinned black man due to him having African roots, because his dad is actually full 100% African. So even as a biracial, he looks more blacker than me as far as phenotype goes. People will look at me and assume that I'm biracial compared to him, but I'm fully black. I have 2 black parents. I have black grandparents for the most part. It doesn't get mixed until you get to my great grandmother, who's a mixture of white, black, and Native American. So to rule that out, instead of judging people based off of phenotypical looks, we can darn gonna do DNA testing nowadays. We can fund geologists to help trace lineages for black people to see who they their ancestors, slave owners was, and that would create a documented case of them being American descendants of slaves versus somebody who's a first, second generation African or a West Indian person, because you have West Indies here from Haiti and the Dominican Republic and stuff that's only been here for like 2-3 generations. You need to exclude those people out while focusing on the black Americans that are here that have roots that stem back further. So that's what reparations talk need to be. It needs to be a percentage system, which I am going to finally come up with a video on breaking it down of how, just like Native Americans, they have a percentage system from the top tribal leaders receive a certain amount and other people receive a different amount. Not everybody receives the same thing, because the way that this reparations talk is being talked about cut the check, is being spoken like somebody like Mariah Carey can get the same amount as me. Now, of course, Mariah Carey is a multi-millionaire. I'm not saying her personally, but somebody with her look and, a genetic background can receive just as much as me. That's why I say it needs to be a percentage system where full black people who have two black parents and grandparents gets the top tier of the reparation payment to the tune of 60%. Biracials get 30%, and quadroons get a quarter. Anybody below a quadroon is not a cutoff. And because at the end of the day, it's so complex that you can't have the topic without including biracials and people who are, white but have immediate African ancestry. Those people need to be included to a certain extent. But there do need to be a cutoff, because we don't need nobody who is, 99% white and can't trace a black in them until they great grandparent. And it's like, well, hell, by that case, I can trace my great grandfather to a white man. I only need to go back 4 generations for that. But does that mean I get to claim some darn on white privilege by going back 4 generations? No. So what the hell makes you think you need to claim darn on reparations, being as fair skinned, trying to go back to great grandfather about 6, 7 darn on generations? No, God, honey. That shit don't work with no other group. That shit don't work with Native Americans. Native Americans start trying to cut people off. Some of them are strict as you have to have as much as 25% darn gone DNA. Some is 25%. Some you can get it for as little as 1/16 Native American blood. I don't know about Japanese, how that worked. I think that was the Pacific group. And then the same thing for other groups as well. The Jewish community at the time of reparations being paid out, I think it was $300,000. 300,000 people. And then today, the second payout was given to, I want to say, about 2 million people. Now with America, it's 40 million black people here. But if you put in the restrictions in place and do a percentage system, put in tracking of genealogy, so DNA genealogy tracking, that will reduce that number down to about, I would say, maybe about 30 million American descendants of enslaved Africans. And that is the combination of full black people, biracials, and quadroons. And once again, full black people need to be paid out of the total amount 60%, biracials 30%, and quadroons 30%. People who only can show that they have 2 grandparents that are black, but or any percentage that gives them like a 25 to 30+% genetic makeup, is a very complex darn going thing I came up with. But since nobody else came up with it, I said, hell, I'm going to come up with it. So look out for part 2 of how I plan on breaking it down, of how reparations should be paid out as far as cash disbursement is concerned. And I think the cash disbursement should be $1 trillion. Now, I think $5 trillion should be used exclusively towards economic redevelopment for black people, as far as, excuse that notification, y'all. I got my phone and my laptop synced together, so. But I think $5 trillion in reparations should be for economic redevelopment, for bank grants to be given out to black people to fund businesses, not to be confused with a loan. Although when it comes to loans, there should be money funded to black-owned banks to help black people to get proper loans. I'm not for funding loans through banks, but I want it to be preferably from banks that are owned by black institutions. I mean, by black people, and on the stock exchange that is dominantly ran by black people. I don't want no Bank of America, definitely not no Wells Fargo. Like, we don't need, banks that were a part of former slave owning to be a part of darn on the reparations as far as giving it out and overseeing it. Now, they need to be darn on coming up off the money, but they damn sure don't need to be overseeing who gets what. because we see how they do today. Like, they don't even treat darn poor white people right. As far as darn, you see how Wells Fargo did everybody. So how in the hell you think somebody like Wells Fargo supposed to oversee for black people? So I'm definitely with her on getting the body of people together as far as overseeing this. But yeah, the only thing that messed me up was the dollar amount. Like I said, this needs to be $6 trillion. $1 trillion need to be broken down into a systematic way of paying out people in direct cash disbursements. And then $5 trillion need to be talked about as far as, funding black colleges, funding black police stations, funding the development of exclusive black neighborhoods that have our own police force. Jewish people are able to have their police departments. In Africa, you have Chinese able to darn gonna have their own police departments. What else? Like I said, Native Americans have their police departments. Jews have their police departments. Hell, the United States is dominantly white. White people by default have their police departments. Why can't black people have their own police departments to darn gone govern their own enforce the law within their own neighborhoods? Since there's so much of a problem with darn gone racial tensions that people need darn gone de-escalation training when it comes to darn gone arresting black people, but that's a whole video within itself. So that is everything, y'all. Basically, the main thing that did stand out to me with this was reparations. That was the only thing worth talking about in this, because everything else has been discussed. I mean, they revisited climate change. It's like, okay, we got everybody's policy on climate change. We already know they focusing on immigration reform, so it wasn't nothing new. The only thing that stood out within this was they brought up, reparations more. That's why I pretty much dedicated this video on, reparations, because that was the only thing that they pretty much brought up that was new. Everything else was the same old, Medicare for all, getting cars all electric by 2040 is the plan for Bernie Sanders. The eradication of student loan debt, we've been talking about this over and over and over and over again. The only thing new was the reparations topic. It's finally done came on the table. And Marianne Williamson, this is how you need to bring it out for the next one. I need you to bring out the differences between crack cocaine and the way that crack addicts are treated that are dominantly black versus heroin addicts that are dominantly white. I need you to bring up Bernie Sanders and the fact that he was glad to sign off for reparations for his own people, but he wasn't darn gone ready to sign off for reparations for black people and calling it divisive. We need to darn gonna add an extra zero to that darn gone reparations, where we're talking about $6 trillion paid out as opposed to $500 billion. And then I need you to call out the hypocrisy of Kamala Harris running as a darn gone seemingly black woman. And I need you to use the word seemingly. Now, you don't have to be as bold to call her ethnicity into question. You don't need to darn gone flat out say, girl, that technically you more Indian. We need to see a DNA test, because then they're going to call you birthday, honey. So I just need you to darn gone throw the jab just enough and say, you running as a seemingly black woman and darn gone Cory Booker as a darn gone black man. Y'all are darn gone mentioning darn gone benefits that overall affects everybody. And then for you to allude to providing darn going tax cuts for everybody who makes under $100,000 is going to majority help black people. That was somewhat of a dig to say that a majority of black people make under $100,000 a year. Which, even if that was true, that does not wipe out, racism. That doesn't wipe out, criminal the injustices that are done to us as far as on the criminal level. So reparations is a combination of cash payout, economic restitution, and criminal justice reform. It's all three parts. And I don't know why people get that confused, because unfortunately you have so many black people who are just concerned about the money, talking about just give me the money, give me the money. And it's like you wonder why black people are stuck in the situation that they're in, because the times that black people have been given some form of restitution and was just given the money and there wasn't something else set in place for your neighborhoods and for your livelihood to be protected and for you to be on an equal playing ground, you wonder why your black ass, now 60 some years later, you are still in the same predicament. Because we are quick to just want the darn on money, but we don't darn on push the extra mile like every other group to get darn on full equality. Native Americans did not settle just for the money. They went as far as wanting economic restitution. They wanted the darn on their own police force. They wanted to govern their own darn on land, which is ironic, you know, that we talking about they need to govern their own land. Technically, all of America is supposed to be their land, but the few lands that was given out to them, which is sad to say that land of Native Americans need to be given out to Native Americans. So I apologize to that, but unfortunately, natives, it is what it is. The land that has not been taken back from eminent domain, that you are able to govern, is still able to be run by all exclusively Native Americans. Jewish people are able to have economic restitution to the point where they control majority of Hollywood, along with the Indian community. And then if you mention this, Marianne Williamson, if you bring up the Indian community and Jews owning Hollywood, as soon as you say the Indians have Bollywood, I need you to do a slight shaded look towards Kamala Harris, like you it's a way that you can throw out the jabs towards Kamala without directly going there. Like, as soon as you mention Bollywood being able to have a play into economic status in America, you can just throw out a little side-eye look towards Kamala Harris and her Indian ancestry, and then go back into topics about how, you know, Black Wall Street was dismantled and that was never paid back to, you know, black people. We can talk about all the cases that have not met trial. You know, of course, you paid out individual people such as the family of Eric Gardner, Philando Castile. But then you can mention how Philando Castile, you had office talking about we shouldn't even pay her the money because she's just going to spend it on crack cocaine anyway. Even if she did, why would she have a crack cocaine problem in the first place if the government wasn't responsible in a way of pushing the crack cocaine epidemic upon her people? So if she was going to spend the money on crack, that's even more of your fault of why darn on reparations should be darn on paid. Because if it wasn't for you darn on pumping the crack cocaine into her community in the first place, she wouldn't be as susceptible to darn on spend money on crack cocaine. Now let that sink in. But what about all the people though who have not properly been paid out, who were unfortunate enough not to have their atrocities on recorded? What about all those people? And then this can just go on and on, but I'm going to stop it right here. But yeah, that was the ultimate highlight of the night for me, was the reparations topic, because like I said, everything else was, you know, the same old, same old. So I love y'all to leave y'all thoughts down below on this. It's currently 6:24, so we got an hour in. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and set my DVR right now. We got like an hour and a half to the next round of debates, and the night is going to be, let me see, night 2 includes former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Kamala Harris. Okay, I'm going to name all the people because, you know, there's the nobodies that we don't remember. So Senator Cory Booker, former HUD Secretary Julian Castro. Okay, let me click more info to see the other people. Andrew Yang, you know, Mr. UBI bill. We already, matter of fact, we got a whole series on this channel regarding him, and I just finished another video, Andrew Yang's platform part 6. So we doing a 10-part series on Andrew Yang. So we familiar with him over here. Governor Jay Inslee. Oh shoot, it disappeared, y'all. It was like 2 more people. So Governor Jay Inslee. And then the last 2 people are, Oh no, it was just one more person. Representative Tulsi Gabbard. So those are the 10 people that are going up tonight. But yeah, as far as this one and the topic of reparations, Marianne Williamson, that's how you need to go by addressing it and tying it into modern day people. Because a lot of people think that reparations should not be paid out to modern day black people because we wasn't around during slavery. But if you tie it into civil rights, the crack cocaine epidemic, redlining, um, and the modern day atrocities that are happening to us to this day, the fact that the the 13th Amendment still allows, ironically, for slavery, and the fact that it uses the word slavery to be enforced in the 13th Amendment is problematic within itself. Because then when you point out that the FBI, now this is the key one. I know this video's long, but this is the major important one. If you point out that the FBI has ruled that the Ku Klux Klan has infiltrated the police departments nationwide, that is a direct tie to modern day reparations. Because the same group of people that are known to torture and kill black people are now infiltrating the police department and are now overseeing the darn law enforcement, and it's just a coincidence that the majority of black people are being arrested for crimes, even though we represent 15% of the population. It's just a coincidence that we get sentenced to 4 times as much compared to our to our white counterparts for the exact same crime. That if you find a crack rock in a white man's pocket and then you find one in a black man's pocket, it's the exact same amount. The darn white man might get 6 months in jail, but the black man was getting 20 years. If you point out that hypocrisy and that the Klan and white nationalist groups are leading in the police departments, that is a direct way to advocate for every black person in America, a descendant from here, that can get reparations. Now I know y'all going to say, well, doesn't that affect all black people? Shouldn't by default all the black people here get reparations? And the answer is no, because the thing is, when it comes to an African, when it comes to a West Indian person, they chose to come here knowing all the atrocities. They utilize their foreign privilege of being seen as other to separate themselves from black American people when it's convenient. And worst case scenario, if they really feel uncomfortable as a person who's not born here and has the luxury of knowing a different language and a culture, you're able to go back to where you came from. And I hate to say it like that, but that's the honest truth. If a Haitian hates how it is in America, you have the privilege to go back to Haiti. You have the privilege to go back to wherever country in Africa you're from. But being born here, my people being born here for centuries back, none of us black Americans have the privilege of packing up and just going somewhere else. Because if we pack up, we're assimilating to a whole nother culture. But if you go back, you're going back to your own culture. So that's the way to separate black foreign people who like to say, well, shouldn't it be paid out to all of us then? Because I'm going to be judged as, I'm going to be racially profiled. Yeah, but the difference is you're able to go back to a land where a majority of the people look like you and the people in leadership look like you. For all we had, everybody's been white. We've only had one half black president. And then that black president was half African, who didn't have no darn black chastile blood in him. So the one black person that you call yourself giving us is somebody who doesn't even have no American darn roots. As far as from his black side, his father is directly from Africa. It's his white mother that's American. And then we talking about Senator Kamala Harris. Once again, her mother is from India. Her father is from Jamaica. She's a first generation American. So once again, she doesn't even have no doggone black blood in her as far as stemming from American chattel slavery. The only one who can say that right now in the race is Cory Booker. But Cory Booker is not even doggone proposing reparations or anything exclusive towards black people, really. He's doggone flip-flopping just like doggone Senator Kamala Harris. Every now and again, he'll talk about being darn in a poor black neighborhood by choice. You darn as senator chose for your house to be in there. But if you wanted to be in the most echelon darn on neighborhoods, you had the darn on choice. It's not like you darn on don't have the money or the power to darn on get into the neighborhoods that you wanted to. So don't act like you can relate to the darn on struggle because you purposely put yourself there. So I find that disingenuous. So once again, all of these are darn on points that darn on Marianne Williamson can use to take down each and every last one of these people. Because you're going up against strong personalities and you need to hit back at them. So those are darn on talking points that you can use to easily take out Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden. You can get him on the darn on segregation. Your toughest fight is going to be with Elisabeth Warren, but that's not really going to be that tough because you can hit her with the Navajo and trying to pretend to be Pocahontas. So those are your ways to knock out the top 5. The only one that I don't have a plan for you yet is for Andrew Yang. But you can look at my series on Andrew Yang and then compare your platform up against his. And then within those 6 videos, your camp then can come up with a strategy to take out Andrew Yang. So that is it, y'all. That's my complete breakdown of the debates and my extensive plan on how Marianne Williamson can take out her top contenders as far as securing that she will get the Democratic nominee to go to the general election. Once again, Marianne Williamson, I know I'm not popular. I'm not the Field Advice Show, aka African Diaspora Network, but I think my darn on thoughts, especially considering my background, I'm going to toot my horn. I come from a family in North Carolina that has held every major position. My current darn on cousin is the mayor of Fayetteville, North Carolina. I have a darn on family member who darn on served in the Senate, the House of Representatives, superintendent of the darn on school, the head of the police department, several darn on judges in the Cumberland County darn on courthouse. So I'm also speaking from some professional experience in relation to my family background. I'm also speaking for somebody who has a marketing background. So even though I'm not Phil from the Advice Show, my little darn on input can be worthy too. Just consider me the diamond in the rough, honey. You know, Beyonce said, you know, we darn gonna shine like darn on black pearls, honey. Consider me your darn on black darn on pearl diamond in the rough, giving you these jewels for you to darn gonna win this darn on election. If you want any chance of winning, this is the strategy that you need to go to systematically take each and every last one of them out. So that is it, y'all. Make sure you share this with Marianne Williamson as well. Like I said, with enough sharing, she will come across this. And I'll see y'all soon with more videos. Mwah.